We all know how the Zeke Elliott holdout is going to end, right? Jerry Jones is going to cave. He can't help himself. And part of that is because he wants so badly to win. But I believe there's another reason as well. I believe Jerry genuinely cares about his players and doesn't want to do to Zeke what he absolutely could. All right, here's the deal. Ezekiel Elliott is not in the position that Le'Veon Bell was in last year, or even where Dak Prescott is right now. He's a first-round pick who has played a total of 3 seasons. If he holds out indefinitely, do you know when he would become a free agent? Never. If Jerry wants to, he can tell Zeke, you have to show up here if you ever want to get paid to play football again in your life. Now, would that be the right thing to do? That's not for me to say. But you can make a pretty strong argument that to pay any running back the money Zeke Elliott is asking for makes no sense. First of all, no one else is doing it. NFL teams spent less money on their running backs last year than they did 10 years ago, even though the salary cap has increased by 50%. That is because no one runs the ball anymore. The average game last year had 52 rushing attempts. That's the fewest ever. And that is because running the ball is no longer the way to win. Did you know the last team to lead the NFL in rushing and win the Super Bowl was the '85 Bears? The last player to lead the league in rushing and win the Super Bowl was Terrell Davis. That was 1998. It hasn't happened this century. For crying out loud, more kickers signed contracts worth $10 million guaranteed dollars this offseason than running backs. So where does all that leave the Cowboys? In the driver's seat, if they want to be. It's unfortunate, and it's probably unfair. But if Jerry Jones doesn't want to pay Zeke Elliott a fortune of money, he absolutely doesn't have to, and you could make a pretty strong argument that he probably should not. That's what I think. I'm going to duck as I turn to Bobby Carpenter, the former Cowboy, and ask him if you agree with either thesis. One, that he doesn't have to pay a running back that kind of money and that paying one makes no sense. And two, that the reason he will, at least in part, is he doesn't want to do that to the kid because he likes him.
I agree with parts of both. I think, first of all, there are only probably 3 or 4 running backs that are worth that top-end dollar. And it's because they not only contribute in the running game, but they can contribute in the passing game. And Zeke Elliott attributed for 36% of the Dallas Cowboys offense last year. That's greater than any other player in the NFL. In 3 years, he's been the best running back short of Jim Brown in NFL history running the football. And one of the main things that he does is he makes their defense significantly better. They have all these talented players over there. They've got DeMarcus Lawrence, Jalen Smith, Van Der Esch. These guys are really good. And he makes them better because the time of possession is on their side. The Cowboys run a slower-paced offense than anybody in the NFL. They're built to pound it. They're not built to throw it all over the place. And Jerry, he does love his players. He doesn't want to do that to Zeke, but he also loves winning. And while he may never have to pay Zeke, he may also never win a Super Bowl.
You win a Super Bowl, though, by playing that style. I just demonstrated for you that no one has in this millennium.
No, you don't. And that's the thing. I agree that this offense is built to have Zeke in it. But then again, last year they were 22nd in yards per game, 22nd in points until Cooper showed up. Then they jumped up to around 15. So they are much better with Amari Cooper because that allows Dak Prescott to be better. So I'll ask you this. Over the next 5 years, if you could choose to have Zeke be the best running back in the league and play at a high level, or Dak be a top 5 quarterback in the league and play at a high level, what you going to choose?
The more likely option.
Which is?
Zeke being a top 5 running back.
Okay, but I'm saying if you could choose for Jerry Jones, I'm saying in order for that to happen, in order for Dak to actually get to the point where he can do that and justify the amount of money you're going to have to pay him, you have to have Amari Cooper. And you can't have all 3 of those guys getting the money that they want. So to me, Cooper and Dak is the combo that you have to keep together more so than paying Zeke and trying to pay all 3 of them. It's not going to work.
They were winning games even when their offense was bad because their defense was better with Zeke. When Zeke was suspended 2 seasons ago, those 6 games, they struggled because they couldn't run the football. Their defense was on the field more. Throwing the ball may be the way to win, but they haven't built this team.
But if you spend $35 million on a quarterback, which you're going to have to, can you justify spending top dollar on a running back? Or when you spend that money on a quarterback, that guy better be able to make everybody on that roster better and elevate the play no matter who you plug in.
Sam, jump in here. What do you think?
It's not the formula for winning a Super Bowl recently. We've seen that. We know that. Just look at what Bill Belichick's done with relative unknowns at the position. But what else do we know about Jerry Jones? Jerry Jones loves a star. And I don't just mean the one on the helmet. He loves a big name, a guy that's going to be talked about on TV every day. He loves that. Zeke is just that. The other thing I know about billionaires, not that I know any at all, but is that they don't want to look cheap. Right, a billionaire does not want to look cheap, and if he nickels and dimes this whole thing, we saw him in the interview the other day saying, like, I could actually afford these guys on my own, but, you know, the system won't allow it. I think the deal ends up getting done.
It'll get done because Jerry wants to win that Super Bowl. I keep going back to that, and here's the thing, we can talk Dak, I don't know what he would get on or Zeke, I don't know what he would get on the open market, but I don't think Dak would garner $34 million on the open market either. Like, to me, he's the $30 million guy. They'll pay him more than Carson Wentz just to make him feel good. And then I don't know how Jerry's going to try to figure out Amari Cooper.
I don't know. Somehow someone paid a whole lot of money for a lot of other quarterbacks that have accomplished a whole lot less than Dak Prescott has accomplished thus far in his career. It'll be very interesting to watch where this thing goes. Again, I don't like saying the things that I said because it's totally unfair to these running backs, but those are the reality of the situation. Meanwhile, Todd McShay has dropped his big board, and at the very top in the #1 slot for next year is Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who's coming off a season where he threw 43 touchdowns and ran for another 5. He is joined at the top of this by teammate and frequent target Jerry Jeudy, who is at #2, and you can see some of the other players on this list. I immediately looked to see where would Justin Herbert pop in, the next quarterback, and he is at #7. There were a lot of people who thought he could have gone into the draft this past year and would have been drafted very high had he been. So again, he's got Tua at #1. He's got Herbert at #7. If you're wondering where's Trevor Lawrence in all this, Trevor Lawrence is not involved. He cannot be drafted next year. He's not coming out. So it really is at this moment about those two quarterbacks. So I'm looking at you. In your mind right now, as a prospect, who is better, Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert?
This is one I go back and forth on right now. I think I have a lot of questions about Tua Tagovailoa right now. The 4 best defenses he played last year, 6 interceptions. He turned the ball over against the best teams he faced last year. I don't think we've seen him put together a complete game against a defense that you'd say, whoa, that shows me he can play at the next level. Now, are there translatable skills? Absolutely. Throws off platform, great decision making, great anticipation and touch, but he doesn't have the arm strength that Justin Herbert has either. Oh, and also, we only put the top 10 up there. Jerry Jeudy at #2, Henry Ruggs at #11. So Tua's playing with 2 guys that are top 15 picks possibly in the NFL in Todd McShay's eyes. What if you put Justin Herbert with those guys? I think there's questions about both, but Tua has not proven to me yet in his body of work that he can go against the best and consistently be the best.
So Tua's a little slighter. He's a little smaller than Justin Herbert. And you look at that, he hasn't started to me and really started and finished and won a big game. So you could throw the Oklahoma game in there, but he came in the second half of the national championship game.
That defense is Swiss cheese, though.
He did. But and you look at that, and then in the SEC championship, he had to be bailed out by Jalen Hurts. And then in the national championship game, you watched what happened. The doors were blown off. And there's 3 stages of quarterback rankings. You have the preseason, then you have after season, and then you have after the combine and all the way leading up where these guys are going to get spun through. And that's where I think Justin Herbert, when you look at him, he's 6'6". He's almost 240 pounds. He's not nearly as athletic, but he's functionally athletic and can move enough. He has the strong arm. He may be a little stiffer. He doesn't have that athleticism, but I think people are going to fall in love with all of those measurables.
Oh, yeah.
He is going to wow people once he starts throwing for them. And everybody sees him because right now he's on the Pac-12 and he's on the West Coast and no one's really watching a ton of those games.
Some of us are. I'll say this about Tua. Obviously, his size isn't going to be an issue. We've seen that the last 2 years with the #1 overall pick. That's not a big deal. In terms of the defenses he goes up against, I agree with you in games, but he also goes up against a nasty defense every day in practice.
Totally.
So he is used to that. But I don't think any quarterback will go #1 because if you look at the teams that might be in that spot, Cardinals, maybe Lions, Bills, Jags, none of those guys are taking a quarterback. I think Jerry Jeudy or an O-lineman ends up going #1.
I don't agree with that. I agree with you that maybe the team that winds up there doesn't need a quarterback, but someone will trade up to get these guys. I actually heard Will Kane, I'll give him credit, did a really nice segment yesterday where he looked at the number of teams that will probably be looking for quarterbacks next year. And I was listening on the radio yesterday, I think it was in the context of Dak Prescott. Like if Dak were to become a free agent, how many teams would be dying to get him? And there was something in the neighborhood of 10 teams that project to need a quarterback next year. If Tua sort of blows everybody away, if he's really good this year, I think he's the guy teams will be trading up to #1 to try to get, right? He's got that kind of star quality about him. And I agree with you. Herbert's the kind of guy that GMs will talk themselves into loving.
Oh, my gosh. They'll see him in shorts. They'll see him throw that ball. I mean, he is impressive. He throws it more impressively than Tua. But both those guys are going to improve any number of those 10 teams you're talking about.
Yeah, and look, there are other quarterbacks that will be involved in this conversation as well, and that's where the free agency part of it comes in. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch. We'll be talking about another quarterback as we continue you next. And that one went number 2 once upon a time. Mitchell Trubisky. He and the Bears have Super Bowl aspirations. His head coach, Matt Nagy, talks about those live with us next. Get Up on ESPN.